The princess was forced to marry the poorest man in the village. But what the king didn't know, this man harbored a secret that could change everything. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Long ago, in a small African village called Maziwa, there lived a king named Kato. He had 4 daughters, Zuri, Safi, Nia, and the youngest, Amani. Every time his wife gave birth, he hoped for a boy, but it always turned out to be a girl. When Amani was born, something strange happened. An old woman from a nearby village was angry because she believed the king had disrespected her. So she cursed the baby, Amani. Because of the curse, Amani was born with a pig's nose instead of a normal nose. Everyone in the village whispered about it, saying Amani was cursed. As Amani grew older, people made fun of her. They called her the pig princess, and they laughed whenever they saw her. The 3 sisters, Zuri, Safi, and Nia, grew up to be beautiful and got married to rich men. But Amani stayed single because no man wanted to marry a girl with a pig's nose. The king was worried. He loved his daughter Amani, but he was also embarrassed. So, one day he made a tough decision. He decided to marry Amani off to a very poor man, someone so poor that no other princess would be able to marry him. This man was called Jabari, but there was a secret that no one knew about him. The king called his advisors and told them to find the poorest man in the village. After searching for days, they found Jabari. Jabari lived in a tiny mud hut at the end of the village. He had no family, no land, and no cattle. He worked odd jobs just to have enough to eat. When the king's guards came to his door, Jabari was shocked. Why would the king's men come here? He wondered. The guards stood tall and serious. The king has chosen you to marry his daughter, Princess Amani, one of them announced. Jabari was confused. Marry? Princess? Me? He asked, looking around his small, dirty hut. Why would the king want that? But the guards didn't answer. You will meet the king tomorrow. Do not be late, they ordered. The next day, Jabari put on his best clothes, which were still old and torn, and he walked to the palace. When he entered, he saw King Kato sitting on a high chair. Next to him stood Princess Amani, her face covered with a veil. Jabari, the king said, I'm giving you the greatest honor. You will marry my daughter, Princess Amani. Jabari looked at the king, then at Amani. He was still confused. But why me? He asked softly. The king's face turned serious. Do not ask so many questions. Just accept this gift. You will live in a house I provide, and you'll have food to eat every day. Marry my daughter, and your life will be better. Jabari thought for a moment. He didn't understand why the king would choose a poor man like him, but he was tired of being hungry and alone. So he bowed down his head and said, Yes, your majesty, I will marry the princess. The king nodded. Good, the wedding will be tomorrow. Jabari couldn't believe it. From being the poorest man in the village, he was now going to marry a princess. But little did he know, this was not the happy ending he thought it would be. The next day, the whole village gathered to see the strange wedding. People whispered and laughed behind their hands. Look at him, one woman giggled. He's just a poor man. How can he marry a princess? And look at her. She's wearing a veil, another man sneered. Why does she hide her face? Because she's a pig princess, someone shouted. The crowd roared with laughter. Jabari looked at his bride, but he had noticed her shoulders were crunched together and her hands trembled. He felt a strange mix of pity and confusion. Why did people hate her so much? When the priest said, You may now lift the veil and kiss the bride, Jabari took a deep breath. He gently lifted the veil and froze. The crowd gasped. It's true, someone yelled. She has a pig's nose. Jabari stared at Amani's face. She had a small, flat nose that looked like a pig's. Her eyes were filled with sadness, and tears ran down her cheeks. Before Jabari could say anything, the king's guard stepped forward. "The wedding is complete," one of them announced loudly. "Princess Amani and her husband Jabari will now live in a small house on the hill." Jabari blinked, trying to understand what is happening. But before he could speak, he and Amani were pushed into a carriage and taken to a tiny house far away from the palace. The house was small and old, with broken windows and a leaking roof. When they entered, Jabari looked around and sighed. "This is not what I expected." Amani stood quietly by the door, her eyes on the floor. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Jabari turned to her. "You didn't want to marry me," she said, her voice trembling. "No one does. The king only made you marry me because he wanted to get rid of me." Jabari's eyes widened. "What? Why?" Amani took a deep breath. "Because of this," she pointed at her nose. "People think I'm cursed. They think I bring bad luck." Jabari felt a strange mix of anger and sadness. He didn't know what to say. Instead, he shook his head and muttered, "Well, I didn't have a choice either." For the next few weeks, life was hard. The villagers mocked them whenever they stepped out. They threw stones at their house and shouted, "Big princess and the fool husband." Jabari tried to ignore them, but it was hard. Amani stayed inside most of the time, crying quietly. One day, Jabari couldn't take this anymore. "Enough!" he shouted. "We will not let them treat us like this," he said. But Amani just shook her head. "There is nothing we can do." "Yes, there is," Jabari insisted. "We will prove them wrong. We will work hard and we will make a good life for ourselves." Amani looked at him, surprised. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. For the first time, she felt a small sparkle of hope. Jabari started working harder than ever. He took on any job he could find, digging wells, fixing roofs, he even plowed fields. Slowly, the people began to notice. They still mocked him, but they also started paying him for his work. One day, a rich merchant came to Jabari and said, "I need someone to build a fence around my land. Can you do it?" "Yes, I can," Jabari replied. The merchant looked at him closely. "But you're the one married to the pig princess, right? Why should I trust you?" Jabari clenched his fists. He wanted to punch the man, but he took a deep breath and said, "Judge me by my work, not by my wife." The merchant laughed. "Fine, if you do a good job, I will pay you well. If not, I will spread the word to the entire village that you are a useless man." Jabari nodded. "Deal." Amani watched from a distance as Jabari worked day and night, building the fence. She wanted to help, but she was afraid people would mock them even more. But one evening, when Jabari was too tired to continue, she picked up a hammer and started nailing the boards. "What are you doing?" Jabari asked, surprised. "I want to help," Amani said quietly. Jabari smiled for the first time in weeks. "Thank you," he said. Together, they finished the fence. The merchant was so impressed and paid them double. Word spread quickly, and soon Jabari was getting more work. For the first time in a long time, he had enough food to eat. Just when things seemed to be getting better, something terrible happened. As Jabari and Amani's life started to improve, the news reached the palace. King Kato was furious when he heard that the couple was not suffering as much as he had hoped. He called his advisors, a man named Moto. He said, "How could they be happy? I wanted Amani to be out of my sight and forgotten. Do something to make their lives miserable again." Moto smiled wickedly. "Leave it to me, Your Majesty." Moto went to the village and started spreading rumors. "Have you heard?" he whispered to the villagers. "Jabari and Amani have been stealing from rich merchants. They pretended to work hard, but they are thieves." The villagers, always eager for gossip, they believed the words. Soon, people started looking for Jabari with suspicion. One day, when Jabari went to collect payment for a job, the merchant pushed him away. "You think I will pay you? A thief?" he shouted. Jabari was stunned. "A thief? I'm not a thief. I did my work," the merchant sneered. "Everyone knows what you do and your wife do. Get out before I call the guards." Jabari returned home, his face pale. "They think we are stealing," he told Amani. "They believe we are thieves." Amani's eyes filled with tears. "But why? We didn't do anything wrong." Jabari shook his head. "I don't know, but it's like we are cursed." Amani flinked at the word. "Cursed?" That's what everyone has called her entire life. She felt all despair creeping back into her heart. One night, just as Jabari and Amani were preparing for bed, there was the loud banging on their door. To find a group of angry villagers holding torches and sticks. "Get out!" they shouted. "We do not want thieves in our village." Jabari tried to reason with them. "We are not thieves. We have worked hard for everything we have." But the villagers wouldn't listen. "We don't believe you," they yelled. "You and your cursed wife have brought bad luck to us." Before Jabari could say another word, someone threw a stone, hitting Amani on the shoulder. She cried in pain, and Jabari stood in front of her, shielding her with his body. "Leave her alone," he shouted. "Leave our village or we will burn down your house," the leader of the mob shouted. Jabari and Amani looked at each other, fear and sadness in their eyes. They had no choice. They packed a few belongings and left in the middle of the night, the villagers hearing and throwing stones at them. "Where will we go?" Amani whispered, her voice shaking. Jabari put his arm around her shoulders. "We will go far away. We will start over." But Amani's heart felt heavy. She thought they were finally building a life, but now they were back to nothing. After a few days of wandering, Jabari and Amani reached a quiet village called Ndoto. It was a peaceful place surrounded by forests and rivers. The people did not know about the pig princess or the thief husband. They took pity on the tired couple and allowed them to stay in an old, empty hut at the end of the village. One evening, as Jabari sat by the river, he looked at his reflection in the water and he felt a strange sensation, like a dream he couldn't remember. Images flashed in his mind: a grand palace, a royal family, and a throne. His head began to throb, and it clutched in pain. "What? What is happening?" he murmured. Suddenly, he remembered something, a name. "Prince Jabari of Nguvu Kingdom," he asked. "I'm not just a poor man, I'm a prince," he said to himself. He rushed back to the house and told Amani everything. "I remember who I am," he exclaimed. "I am Prince Jabari of Nguvu Kingdom. I lost my memory after an accident, but now I remember everything." Amani looked at him, shocked. "You? A prince? Are you dreaming? Or you're mad? What happened to you? What is wrong?" "No, I'm a prince." Amani was still shocked. "Yes," Jabari said, rubbing his hands. "We do not have to live like this anymore. I will go back to my kingdom and reclaim my throne." Amani's heart pounded. This could be their chance to finally escape the curse that haunted them. But then, a terrible thought stuck in her head. "What if your people reject me?" she whispered. What if they think I'm a cursed woman with a pig's nose? Jabari looked very serious. If they reject you, I will leave. I'm not going anywhere without you. Jabari and Amani set off to Ngovu Kingdom. It took weeks of walking, but finally they reached the gate of the Grand Palace. Jabari's heart raced as he looked at the high walls and golden towers. It all looked so familiar, yet so distant. The guards at the gate stared at them suspiciously. "Who are you?" one of them barked. Jabari stood tall. "I am Prince Jabari, the rightful heir to this kingdom." The guards burst out in laughter. "You? A prince? You look more like a beggar." "Let us in," Jabari said. "I am the son of King Mwinyi." The guards stopped laughing. They exchanged glances. "Wait here," one of them said and ran inside. A few minutes later, an old man with a long beard came out. His eyes widened when he saw Jabari. "Prince Jabari," he whispered. "Is it really you?" "Yes," Jabari said, feeling hope rise in his chest. "It is me." The old man opened and shouted, "Open the gates! The prince has returned." The gates swung open and people began to gather, hammering and pointing. Jabari and Amani were led inside, where they met the king's brother, Uncle Omari, who had taken over the kingdom just after King Mwinyi's death. "Jabari," Uncle Omari said, his voice trembling, "we thought you were dead." "I lost my memory," Jabari explained, "but now I'm back." Tears filled Uncle Omari's eyes. "My nephew, you are truly back." He hugged Jabari tightly, but as soon as he pulled away, his eyes fell on Amani. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice cold. Jabari held Amani's hand. "This is my wife." Mama went through the crowd. "Pig's nose," someone whispered. "Is she cursed?" another person asked. Uncle Omari's eyes narrowed. "This is no woman fit for a prince." Jabari's heart sank. He had hoped his uncle would welcome them both, but he could see the suspicion and the disgust in his uncle's eyes. While Jabari was still trying to regain his place, Uncle Omari was secretly planning. "I cannot let Jabari take the throne," he muttered at himself. "I have ruled this kingdom for too long, and with a wife like that, the people will never accept him." He called his most trusted advisor and whispered. The advisor nodded. "What should we do?" "Spread a rumor," Omari said. "Tell everyone that Jabari's wife is cursed, and tell everyone that her curse is going to bring famine in the kingdom. And because of that curse, every child will die and all mothers will be childless." Over the next few weeks, whispers spread through the kingdom like wildfire. People began to turn against Jabari and Amani. "She's cursed," they shouted. "She'll bring ruin to us. She'll kill us all. She'll kill our children. She will make us childless." Amani, feeling unwanted and hated, wanted to leave. "Let's go, Jabari," she pleaded. "We don't belong here." But Jabari shook his head. "No, I will not run away. This is my kingdom, and I will fight for it." Omari knew that Jabari would not give up easily, so he set a trap that would push Jabari to the breaking point. As the rumors spread throughout Ngovu Kingdom, more and more people started turning against Jabari. They gathered outside the palace, holding torches and shouting, "Get rid of the cursed woman. She will ruin us all." Uncle Mary watched from his chambers, a satisfied smile on his face. "Everything is going according to plan," he whispered to himself. "Soon, we will force Jabari to leave." One night, the crowd grew larger and angrier. They threw rocks at the palace wall and shouted, "We do not want that cursed woman as our queen. She will bring famine, she will bring disease, she will kill our children." Jabari stood on the balcony looking down at the mob. His heart ached. He could see the fear and sadness in Amani's eyes. She stayed hidden inside, afraid to show her face. "We can't stay here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They hate me. I'm ruining everything for you." But Jabari held her close. "No, you are not. I will protect you, Amani. I promise to stand by you, and I will." The next morning, Jabari walked into the throne room and faced his uncle. "I know you have been spreading lies about my wife," he said angry. "Stop it." Uncle Omari raised an eyebrow. "Lies? I'm only telling the truth. The people do not want a cursed woman as their queen. It's not my fault." Jabari clenched his fist. "I'm not going to let you drive us out. I will prove that Amani is not cursed." Omari smirked. "How will you do that, nephew? She had that pig nose all her life. Only the one who cursed her can remove it." Uncle Omari had made his research on this curse and found out that the person that could remove this curse is the person that put the curse on her. Jabari froze. "The one who cursed her?" he muttered. "Yes," Omari said, his eyes glimmering. "If you find the person who cursed her and make them reverse it, the people might accept her." Jabari felt a surge of determination. "Then I will find them," he said firmly. "I will do whatever it takes to break this curse." But Omari's smile only grew wider. "Good luck, Prince. That person disappeared long ago." Uncle Omari had known that the person had disappeared because they had raided all witches and burnt most of the witches. So he knew that there was no curse that was going to be lifted and he was going to remain the king. But little did he know, he was smiling for nothing. Jabari and Amani left the palace that night. They traveled from village to village, asking everyone if they knew who had cursed Amani. But no one had answers. Days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months. They were tired and hungry, but Jabari refused to give up. "Why are you doing this?" Amani asked one night as they sat by a small fire in the forest. "You could have stayed in the palace and remained king, but instead you are out here wandering with me." Jabari looked at her softly. "Because I love you," he said simply. "I don't care about being a king if you're not by my side, and I'll do whatever it takes to free you from this curse." Tears filled Amani's eyes. No one had ever fought for her like this. She leaned forward and kissed him gently. "Thank you," she whispered. Just when they were beginning to lose hope, they came across an old man in a small village. He was blind and sat by the roadside begging for food. "Please, sir," Jabari said, kneeling beside him. "Do you know of a woman who cursed a princess many years ago?" The old man's head snapped. "A woman who curses?" he murmured. "I know of one." Jabari's heart raced. "Tell us." "She was once a beautiful woman, but her heart was full of bitterness," the old man said. "She was in love with the king, but the king did not love her back. She went to a witch and asked for a curse to be placed on his family. Amani cursed the king. That's my father." "Yes," the old man whispered. "The woman's name is Zahara. She disappeared after the curse was placed, but I heard she lives in the mountains now, far to the north, hiding from the world. We will go and find her." The old man nodded. "Be careful, she's dangerous." Jabari and Amani made a long journey to the mountains. The path was steep and dangerous, and many times they almost turned back, but they pressed on, determined to find Zahara. One stormy evening, they finally reached a small, dark cave at the top of the highest mountain. A faint light flickered inside. "Are you sure about this?" Amani whispered, her voice trembling. Jabari squeezed her hand. "We have to try." They stepped inside, and there, sitting by a small fire, was a hunched old woman. Her hair was grey and wild. Her eyes were sharp and piercing. "Who are you?" she asked. "We are here to ask you to break the curse," Jabari said boldly. The woman's eyes narrowed. A curse? Which one? This one, Amani said softly, stepping forward. She pulled back her hood, revealing her pig's nose. Zahara's eyes widened. You, he asked. You are the girl I cursed, the daughter of that foolish King Kato. Please, Amani begged. Take it away. I have suffered all my life because of it. Zahara laughed. Suffered? Good. That was the point. Your father humiliated me. He chose another woman over me, so I made sure he'll never have a happy family. Jabari stepped forward, anger burning in his eyes. The king might have wronged you, but Amani did nothing. She was just a baby. Do you have any pity? Zahara laughed. Pity? Ha! Why should I? Please, Amani whispered again, her voice breaking. I just want to be happy. I just want to be loved. Something flickered in Zahara's eyes. Maybe a memory of her pain, of the love she never had. She looked away, grumbling. I can't undo the curse on my own. Only the witch who helped me can. But I will tell you where to find her. Jabari's heart leaped. Where? She lives in the dark forest beyond the greater river, Zahara said. But be aware, she will not help you easily. Thank you, Amani said softly. Thank you so much. Zahara waved her hand dismissively. Go before I change my mind. With new hope, Jabari and Amani set out once more into the dark forest. The trees were tall and twisted. Strange sounds filled the air, but they pressed on. Small, crooked hut deep in the woods. A woman with long white hair and glowing eyes stepped out. Who dares to come here? She asked. We have come to ask for your help, Jabari family said. We need you to break a curse. The woman looked at Amani's face and laughed. Ah, the pig's nose curse. I remember it well. Zahara begged me to place it. Why should I remove it now? Please, Amani begged. I just want to be free. The witch looked at her and she asked, What will you give me in return? Jabari stepped forward. I will give you anything. You can ask for anything. I'll give it to you. Anything? The witch asked. Yes, Jabari said without any hesitation. The witch smiled slowly. Very well. I will remove the curse. She waved her hand, and a bright light surrounded Amani. When it faded, Amani touched her face and gasped. The pig's nose was gone. She had a normal, beautiful nose. Tears streamed down her cheeks. It's gone. It's really gone. Jabari hugged her tightly, laughing with joy. You are free. But you made a promise, Prince Jabari. The witch said, her voice cold. You said you would give me anything. Now I want your memory, just like you lost it once before. You will lose it again. The witch's words hung in the air like a dark cloud. I want your memory, she repeated, her eyes glowing with malice. Forget your past, your present, and everything you have built with her. Jabari's heart dropped. Losing his memory meant losing Amani. He would forget the love they shared, the battles they fought, the promise he made to stand by her side forever. Amani's face turned pale as she realized what it meant. No, she cried, clenching his arm. Please don't do it. I don't want to be free if it means losing you. Jabari turned to her, her eyes filled with sadness and love. Amani, you have suffered enough because of me. You deserve to be happy, even if I'm not with you. Even if I'm not there to see it. Tears streamed down Amani's face. But I don't want to lose you. I love you, Jabari. The witch watched them coldly. What will it be, Prince? She demanded. Choose now. Jabari took a deep breath and looked at Amani, memorizing every detail of her face, the curve of her smile, the warmth of her eyes. He brushed her tears from the cheek and whispered, I love you, Amani. Never forget that. Then he turned to the witch. Take my memory. I choose to forget. "No!" Amani screamed, but it was too late. The witch waved her hand, and a swinging mist surrounded Jabari. He gasped as his eyes glazed over, the light of recognition fading. "Jabari," Amani sobbed, shaking him gently. "Do you know me?" He blinked, staring at her blankly. "Who are you?" Amani's heart shattered. The man she loved, the man who had fought for her, protected her, given up everything for her, was gone. She fell on her knees, sobbing unconditionally. The witch sneered. "There, the curse is broken. Price is paid. Now leave before I change my mind." But just as Amani thought all hope was lost, a voice echoed through the forest. "Stop!" Everyone turned to see Zahara, the woman who had cast Amani. Standing at the edge, her face was pale, her eyes were filled with regret. "I can't let this happen," Zahara said, stepping forward. "I cast her out of bitterness and hatred. I was wrong. I cannot let you destroy them now." The witch asked, "How dare you interfere?" Zahara said firmly, "I loved King Kato once, and when he rejected me, I wanted to make his family suffer. But this," she pointed at Amani and Jabari, "they don't deserve this. If you need a price, take it from me." The witch's eyes narrowed. "From you?" "Yes," Zahara whispered. "Take my life." Amani gasped. "No, please, you don't have to." But Zahara turned to her, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry for everything I did to you, child. You deserve to be happy. Let me do this." Before Amani could say another word, the witch waved her hand. The dark light rushed Zahara, and she laid on the ground, lifeless. The mist surrounding Jabari disappeared, and his eyes cleared. "Amani," he whispered, looking at her with love and recognition. "Jabari, you remember me?" Amani said. Jabari pulled her into his arms. "Would I ever forget you?" They clung to each other, sobbing with relief. The curse was gone, and they were free. With the curse broken and Zahara's sacrifice weighed heavily on their hearts, Jabari and Amani returned to Nguvu Kingdom. When they entered the gates, the people gasped and murmured. "She's no more," someone shouted. "The curse is gone." Uncle Mari rushed out, his face twisted in shock and anger. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "How?" Jabari stepped forward, his eyes blazing with fury. "You tried to destroy us, Uncle. You spread lies and hatred, but we were stronger than your schemes." The people began to cheer. "Long live Prince Jabari! Long live our true king!" Omari's face turned pale. "No! I am the king. I have ruled for years. You cannot." But the people surged forward, their voice growing louder and more consistent. "Long live King! Long live King Jabari!" Jabari raised his hand, and the crowd fell silent. "Uncle Omari," he said coldly, "you have betrayed our family and tried to destroy my life. You will leave this kingdom and never return." Omari opened his mouth and protested, but the people's shouts drowned him. God stepped forward and dragged him away, his cries of rage fading in the distance. Jabari turned to his people. "I will be your king," he said firmly, "and Amani will be your queen." Heart swelling with joy. For the first time in her life, she felt truly accepted. Months passed and the kingdom flourished under Jabari and Amani's rule. The people loved their new king and queen, and the palace was filled with laughter and music once more. One sunny morning, Amani felt a strange sensation in her stomach. She called for the royal healer, who had examined her and then smiled broadly. "Congratulations, Your Majesty," the healer said. "You are pregnant." Amani's eyes widened. "I'm pregnant?" she whispered, with a radiant smile spread across her face. "Jabari, we are going to have a baby." And when Amani told him the news, He lifted her into his arms, spinning her around with joy. "A baby," he laughed. "We are going to be parents." Months later, Amani gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The kingdom rejoiced, and soon another son followed, and another. Before long, Amani had given birth to 7 strong, healthy boys, each one more beautiful than the last. The people marveled. "The curse is truly broken," they whispered. "Our queen has brought life and joy to the kingdom." Amani looked at her sons and smiled. Her heart full of love, she turned to Jabari, who wrapped his hands around her. "We did it," he murmured. "We broke the curse. We are free." "Yes," Amani whispered, leaning her head against his chest. "We are free, and we have a beautiful family." Together, they watched their children play, their laughter filling the air. Jabari and Amani had faced hatred, despair, and darkness, but they had come through it stronger than ever. They had found love, defeated the curse, and built a life full of happiness and joy, and they lived happy ever after. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Thank you for staying until the end.